Well, the minimum wage was passed during the New Deal, during the 30s. And interestingly, after the first minimum wage increase was put into effect, which was 25 cents an hour, the Secretary of Labor under Franklin Roosevelt said that the impact was that people were losing their jobs, that low-skilled people were losing their jobs. But it didn't apply to restaurants, didn't apply to retail, didn't apply to agriculture until the middle 60s. And at that point in time, we ended up with a minimum wage and a 50% tip credit. And it's just increased over time. What's happened to the tip credit over time is that the states have eroded it. There are approximately half of the states that now require that you pay more for a tipped employee than the federal law requires. But at the end of the day, the important thing to remember is that economists, who have no dog in the fight, say that a minimum wage is no longer a good anti-poverty tool. It no longer performs the service that it was designed to serve, and that we would be better off not increasing the minimum wage if we want to help people with low skills. There are people who want to increase the minimum wage because they see it as social welfare policy, that they're basically transferring social policy into the workplace. And they don't necessarily believe that people should be paid on their worth, they should be paid on their need, which of course is a welfare dynamic as opposed to an employment dynamic. I believe that the earned income tax credit, which pays people based upon their family income, is a far more important way to supplement a low minimum wage than paying people higher wages. You have second and third earners today. The average family income of a minimum wage worker is over $50,000. Well, we're back to, again, talking to legislators about the real world economics. I remember when Leon Panetta was the chief of staff for the White House, and he was talking about an increase in the minimum wage, and he said on television, he says, it's only a lousy 10 cents an hour. Well, if you translate a lousy 10 cents an hour through an entire workforce and the ripple effect over the course of a year, multiplied by the number of employees, you get to the point where it's real money. And when people's mentality is, oh, it's 10 cents an hour, versus they understand what the collective impact of that 10 cents an hour is, and if you've got a 5% profit margin, how many more dollars in sales do you have to have in order to generate that lousy 10 cents an hour? People can have a very different perspective as to whether or not this is sound financial policy or not, and that they shouldn't be so cavalier about passing laws that feel good rather than ones that don't work well. If you want to have more information on the minimum wage, you ought to go to minimumwage.com. And there's lots of research and information there that is practical. You can understand it as to how the minimum wage cuts against people with low skills. What's the difference between drinking and driving and drunk driving? Tune in next time to understand that issue.